This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. I want to just say thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. We also want to let you know that we are free and available wherever you download your podcast, and wherever you download your podcast, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate you for that in advance. Now, guys, we're kind of a big deal now. We're on Roku and Amazon Fire, so if you get tired of watching us on your mobile device or your laptop, go ahead and put us on the big screen, because Locked On Sports Atlanta is right there for you. Just another avenue to get some of this greatness each and every day. Now, T, the Braves are sitting around chilling, waiting for their opponent for the divisional series, but I think that it is something that needs to be discussed as far as how did they get here. We'll talk about that. And Kyle Pitts hasn't played. We know that Cordarrelle Patterson is not going to be he's not going to be on with the team for at least the next 4 weeks. What does that look like for the Falcons against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? And last but not least, and for the culture, we all know how the issues that NHL has had with diversity and just how they handle it and how they deal with it. We'll have a nice discussion about that and for the culture. But first, T, we have to talk about the Atlanta Braves. As I mentioned, that they are waiting to the winner of the Philadelphia Cardinals series. And looking back into the 22-2 season, there were a couple of things that really stood out. One of them was that the Braves were 10.5 games back in the NL East on June 1st. Oh, my goodness. So I started thinking about, all right, who was that person or what happened to actually help get this Braves to this point? And I think that the first thing that comes to mind for me has to be Michael Harris, T.
No question about it. I literally said in my head, and the answer is Michael Harris II. Yes. Now, listen, we can talk about this ad nauseum and we can debate it, because arguably, and Jarvis and I will actually circle back to this early next week. So you guys drop some comments on us and let us know who you think the MVP for the Braves is this season. But Michael Harris II can definitely be in that conversation, because for sure they don't get here without Michael Harris II June 1st. But I'm going to give an honorable mention to the entire Troublemakers crew, because you also don't get there without what Spencer Strider was able to do. And then, of course, Vaughn Grissom kind of bringing up the rear later on. So, wow. Once again, we say that the Braves are in perfect position and in such good shape because of their young guns. But I agree with you. I believe it starts and stops with MH2.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And then Spencer Strider, to add to that, just for a guy to just solidify that fifth starting role, because we know all of the issues the Braves had early on doing that, and for him to come in and solidify that bad boy and also get 200 strikeouts, that is absolutely ridiculous. and be in the conversations with the guy who I believe is one of the best pitchers that I saw growing up outside of the big three for the Braves, and Randy Johnson, the big unit. We even made comparisons of him. Obviously he's right-handed, but the effect that he had on the game and the style that he pitched with, I think that was something that, that was definitely a good comparison, just from just get on the mound and just strike people out. Yeah. And I just absolutely love what Spencer Strider has done. Now, I think one of the things that we also have to kind of pay attention to and keep an eye on as we get ready to, we move along in this sports season, the Hawks, they played a preseason game last night. And T, I don't know about you, but looking at this backcourt with DeJounte Murray and Trae Young, and we got a chance to see Aaron Holiday as well out there making plays. What were your first thoughts when you saw that new look Hawks team come across your screen?
Yeah, a couple of the same comments and same thought processes. When I looked at the stat line, for sure it was exciting, because yes, you had 6 Hawks in double figures, 4 of whom were starters. But like you said, it was always about going down the roster with the Hawks because the bench mob was really what helped the Hawks battle their way back into the postseason last season. So yeah, I was absolutely excited to see what Aaron Holiday was able to do yesterday. And also looking at the stat line and seeing so many players close to double doubles. So of course, when I look at DeJounte Murray with a 25-9-7 stat line,
almost
amazing,
a triple double.
and then you look at what DeAndre Hunter was able to do, a 17-7 night. That's really what I want to look at when I dig down in and taking nothing away from Trae Young and his 22 points, 3 assists, a couple rebounds himself. But that is what I want to see, because what that indicates to me is that everybody is going to be functioning on a high level. And the keys to success are always whenever 1 or 2 players on your team are leading the charge and making everybody around them better and finding ways to get everybody involved. And that may be one of the biggest takeaways that actually isn't necessarily easily seen on a stat line that we were able to take away from what DJ and Trae did on yesterday.
I mean, because the thing coming into this season, right, it was just give Trae some help, right, when it comes to organizing the offense and getting into the flow in the pick and roll and everything like that. And we saw that. That was the thing that's going to help Trae sustain himself through the season. I know he plays a lot of games, and you're not necessarily worried about him being available each night in and night out in an 82-game season. I get that, but you're talking about just from being fresh and being ready to roll when it's crunch time in the fourth quarter. I think that issue has been solved because DeJounte Murray with the pick and roll with John Collins, I love what I saw with that. And I think that one more thing that didn't necessarily have to do with the game, but I think it definitely deserves to be talked about. And I'm sure you know about it when it came to media days. Nate McMillan, took it upon himself to go out and kick it with Trae. Not kick it, but have vacation and all that stuff. But he went to spend some time with his point guard, because I think that it was very, very telling as far as Nate McMillan growth as a head coach, because there were some things and rumblings about players, relationships with him when he was a head coach for the Indianapolis Pacers. And I think that those are some of the things that he's trying to correct now, because he knows that he has to establish a relationship with his star point guard. And for him to go out there and show Trae, hey, here's what you need to do as far as playing off ball. And this is something that you're going to be able to kill offenses with. Like, offense is going to be aggravated trying to guard you. And you saw that last night in the game where he was playing off the ball. And I was like, dang, somebody running pick and roll with Trae without the ball in his hands? What is this? Like, this is refreshing. And for them to put those two things together, Trae playing off the ball and not have to orchestrate everything for 4 quarters, and Nate McMillan taking it upon himself to build that relationship with Trae, that's a recipe for success for me. And I think that the Hawks may be closer to the Eastern Conference Finals team than that team that we saw last year that got bounced out of the first round of the playoffs against the Miami Heat.
Agreed. And just a few caveats to what you said. It's not building the relationship, it's more evolving it, because Nate McMillan has actually done this before. When we spoke to him in the opening press conference, when he was given the official title of head coach last season, he talked about watching different movies with Trae and kind of made some analogies to movies of old and movies of new, and said that's what really helped him to kind of understand the new mindset of this millennial basketball player, if you will. So he kind of started that process, but I think what he did was ratchet that up this season, and also did the same with DJ. And what I loved about it as well is, like you said, you could watch the interchangeability of Trae and DJ. And that's something that when Nate is having those interactions off the court, away from the basketball game with his players, that's what kind of helps them to improve not just their collaboration, but also for them to even further buy into what Nate is saying, but for Nate to also respect the player's vantage point and really bring something together. So I chuckled because I talked to Nate about that last week. I also talked to Landry Fields, and Landry said, and I thought about it last night, he said, hey, give him some time. The opportunity is there, but give them some time to gel. And I'm thinking, they don't need time from what I saw yesterday, especially because they already had the Bucks number last season. So I'm encouraged about what we've seen just in this preseason game alone.
I'm encouraged by, maybe going to betonline.net, because guess what? I'm trying to see what that over-under is for the Hawks. Win total, and I'm trying to see what's going on with those odds is for the Hawks to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, or even to the finals, because I'm excited. I'm amped up. I'm ready to go. I got to do my research because, Bet online is the fastest and easiest way to check in all of your betting needs. Just like I
It
mentioned,
is.
I told you my needs. Bet online has that for me. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. And if you're not into, the NBA or the NFL, they have ancillary sports as well. So you can check out combat sports, esports, and even golf. It is the top online source for all your sports wagering information, live in-game betting, even podcasts. You listen to us and check us out to get information about what's going on in Atlanta sports. Go to betonline.net to do the same for your sports wagering needs. Because guess what, y'all? Bet online is where the game starts.
So it is week 5 for the Falcons. They are heading into Tampa. Get this, with the possibility of taking sole possession of the NFC South. Again, Jarvis, you, I, and probably the rest of the world.
Right.
Yes. Dirty Birds Nation was like, what? We got an opportunity to do this.
Say what?
So it's been so crazy because I saw a stat that said it's been 1,700 days, Jarvis, since the Falcons have been above 500. They also have the chance to do that this weekend. But if they do, they'll have to do it definitely without Cordarrelle Patterson because, of course, he's on IR, having had a surgical procedure to deal with that knee injury he's been kind of working through. And we found out that after a couple of days of Kyle Pitts not going to practice, dealing with a knee injury, he may be up in the air for playing on Sunday. So to me, I'm thinking about it to myself, and I'm like, whoa, granted, this team has definitely been dominated with the ground game. That's where they've been most effective. But on the same token, we've all been waiting for KP to have that breakout game. So I was really thinking like, I wonder which one of these players is going to be missed the most, and which one of these players has Dave Ragone or Arthur Smith really had to game plan for a little bit better, should he or will he be out come Sunday?
You know what? To be honest with you, I think that Kyle Pitts is a guy you're gonna have to miss the most, right? Because he's the guy that is the unicorn. Because Cordarrelle Patterson, we know exactly who his replacement is going to be, and we got a chance to see those guys last week in Tyler Algier and Avery Williams, and you know what I'm saying. So you understand, and Caleb Huntley as well, excuse me. And so what those guys can bring to the table because, hey, they got live action last week and they did really well. They did a good job of filling in. But when we talk about the mismatch, the unicorn, Kyle Pitts and what he brings to the table, and I know a lot of people saying, well, coach ain't using them anyway, so why would that be a big deal? Here's why. Because like when it comes to reading and recognizing the personnel that's in the Falcons huddle, because a lot of defense coordinators call plays accordingly, right? They call plays according to that to see what personnel that's out on the field, and try to figure out what whether it's run or pass or what they're likely to do with those guys on the field. Like that's kind of hard to do when you got a guy, we know he's listed as a tight end, but we know that guy can line up in the slot. He can line up at the X and the Z, like where he can line up anywhere on the field. And he's been lined up in the backfield on some instances. So that's that element of surprise or that extra guess that the defense has to take when they have Kyle Pitts on the field. That's what you're going to miss if he isn't to play. And I think that's going to be a big deal when it comes to Arthur Smith's scheme and what he's trying to do or trying to accomplish when it comes to trying to defeat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And also, Algier, Huntley, and Williams can cover for CP. No KP, a little bit harder to cover for Marcus Mariota. And what I mean by that is this. The Bucks are going to be prepared for stopping the run. They're actually dead on in terms of statistically, they're number 7 against the pass, they're number 7 against the run. So you're going to get it from either direction when it comes to the Bucks. However, Todd Bowles is known for blitzkrieg. That's what he does. And so if you're looking at somebody who's all about the blitz and they're going to be coming after Mariota fast and furious, he needs to be able to get rid of the ball and get rid of the ball however he can to somebody who can just throw it up and let that person catch it. And granted, you do have that in Drake London, but without KP, you miss 2 options. And let's just be honest, once you kind of get past Drake London and you kind of get past KP, then it kind of gets a little thin in the receiver tight end room, especially because you're looking at the tight end room as, let's be honest, if it's not KP, they really are more blocking tight ends than they are catching tight ends. So I agree with you. I think KP is where you miss the most. And I imagine that at some point, you're kind of looking at a Bucks team as well that has struggled with unicorn type tight ends. That's where they struggle the most. So it would have been a great opportunity and could still be if KP's a go. But I agree with you. If he's not a go, that's probably where the Falcons offense is going to miss most. And then you think about this as well. Speaking of number one, at some point, your QB just cannot be the game manager. At some point, he will be asked to make a play. We saw that Thursday night, did we not?
Yes, Lord.
Everybody was looking. Is Matt Ryan going to make a play? Is Russell Wilson going to make a play? Who's going to make a play? So at some point, the quarterback has to make a play, or even in the game where the Packers were able to get by the Bucks, it was Aaron Rodgers who really made the difference. Is Marcus Mariota prepared for that type of challenge, especially with what I just mentioned, with how Todd Bowles schemes for quarterbacks?
I know people are probably surprised by what I'm about to say.
You clearly are the struggle buddy with your
yes, it's a struggle. Yeah, because he struggled. So yeah, of course I struggle with trying to, make sure I'm being objective when I talk about this dude, because a lot of people just really like Marcus Mariota for a lot of, and I get it. He's a really good guy, and
I'll sip my Waffle House. Okay, Jarvis.
Yes, I love it.
Oh,
but here's the thing. Here's the thing. If Marcus Mariota is able to play a clean game, yes, I believe he will be able to make a play. Not carry the team, not carry this offense. Right. He will be able to make one or two, or maybe 2 to 3 necessary plays in order to sustain drives to be able to get them in the end zone. Because I think that there is a little room, and I know you said that they're your top 10 in both categories, right? But they are giving up 4.6 yards a pop in the running game. So I think that's their end right there for Arthur Smith and company. So, but Marcus Mariota has to play a clean game in order for us to even have this conversation about him making plays, in order for them to get a win and take over this NFC South division. And instead sit at the top of it and say, hey, this is where we are. You guys counted us out, 45th ranked out of 32 teams. That still makes me laugh every time I watch that clip of Arthur Smith talk about it after the game. But I think that, it's definitely something that, we definitely have to keep an eye on, because, like a 7-year veteran, guy who's been in the NFL for this long, like certain things you just aren't supposed to see. And I think that, he has to get those things cleaned up. And then that's when we start talking about conversations about making plays. And because Arthur Smith, I don't believe Arthur Smith is going to put Marcus Mariota in a situation where he feels like he can make a mistake. It's just about the mental things for Marcus Mariota and making sure he's getting those right. And then I think that this offense will be okay.
And hopefully the mindset of his offensive line, who've really given him every opportunity to succeed this season, hopefully their mindset will kind of rub off on him, because when we think about what we've seen from them the last couple of years, when is the last time we've said that we would take Atlanta's offensive line and believe that they can actually battle and win in the trenches, even when they're facing a top 10 defense? We have not said that in a very long time. So if Mariota can make those 2 or 3 key plays that keeps drives alive and possibly puts the Falcons in position to win, I would venture to say you and I Monday will be talking about yet another stellar performance from the offensive line. Now, interestingly enough, the Falcons are in the conversation to take sole possession of the lead. The Bucks were always the team that everybody thought was going to be in the conversation the entire season. Right. And most of the season would be in sole possession of first place. Not so much. So I believe that with that in mind, and with most people having absolutely no expectations of the Falcons, pressure's on the Bucks to win this game.
Oh, it has to be. Like, especially coming off of the L they took, that nice whooping they took. Excuse me, my bad. Sorry for that Freudian slip. That whooping they took from the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think that, the one thing that really stood out to me in that game is that Patrick Mahomes was just out there just doing his doggone things. He's just being cold as he ever has been, and I think that, we've gotten so used to Patrick Mahomes just being so great. It's just like, oh yeah, that's Patrick Mahomes. No, that motherfucker was out there balling. Like, that needs to be acknowledged. And he spanked the goat, so I think that, if those, things remain in play, and I think that, definitely the pressure is on. The pressure is on the Bucks here for sure, because like the Falcons out here grinding, head down,
playing with
running the football, hey, we go defense gonna force some turnovers.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, look, did you hear what I just said?
Right.
Like, run the football. Defense gonna
Right.
force some turnovers. Like it's automatic. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, gee, what is
Yes.
going on here?
You have some containment on the outside. What is this
identity?
thing?
Like,
Yes.
wow.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think that, you know, there are definitely some things that the Falcons need to do for sure. But like you said, Bucks are expected to win, and I think that the Falcons are okay going along with that narrative.
Indeed, they are playing with house money, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And we can't wait to talk to you guys about it on Monday. But you know, it's interesting because sometimes there are players who go into a particular league or in a particular situation, and everybody thinks, oh, that person is playing with house money, they got it made. But you never know what's going on behind the scenes that may be making that a little bit challenging. So in For the Culture, we're going to talk a little bit about how one of those situations came full circle and how one league is coming full circle and how they want to extend their reach. We'll talk about it in For the Culture.
Final segment of ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. We want to say thank you for rocking with us throughout the entire show. We really appreciate that. We also really appreciate you guys for getting us over 4,400 subscribers on YouTube. If you have not hit that like or subscribe button, what are you waiting on? Come on, man. Stop playing. Some greatness over here. We don't play around with that. We don't hide that on this show. But this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, and the culture. Sometimes we want to talk about, because that's just how we get down on this show. Today is no different. Now, we talked about a guy, you know, maybe having it easy going into a certain situation. We're talking about Matt Dumba. He is an NHL player, a defenseman, you know, of a mixed descent. You know, he has a and so, you know, obviously there are a lot of things that, you know, he's had to deal with when it comes to racist chants, you know, even coming up, you know, playing hockey in Canada. And that was just something that he just had to really deal with. And I think he's kind of gotten to the point where, you know, hey, he wants to move forward in making, establishing initiatives. And he's done that, you know, to try to promote diversity in the NHL because, hey, they seem to be they're a little slow with it when it comes to doing that. And I think that when you think about a guy like Dumba and you know, and being influenced by a movement, a name that will probably go down as probably one of the biggest names in establishing and starting a movement in today's world, in the George Floyd situation. I think that for Matt Dumba to do what he's doing for the NHL, these are the type of things that I believe will start getting that conversation moved towards saying, hey, we don't no longer need these diversity and inclusion or entities, because we understand and we know what we need in order to move forward and get to where we need to be.
Right. And until that day, you're always going to need a Matt Dumba to just stand up and be that brave and be courageous like he has been, just like Bubba Wallace for NASCAR has been very brave, and players here like Miles Robinson speaking out for MLS. And it takes those kinds of players to really say, hey, I'm going to step out and I'm going to stand up for what I believe in. But it also takes individuals around them to support them and say, hey, I'm with you. So in whatever way, shape, or form that takes place. So I love the fact that we're actually having a conversation, Jarvis, about niche sports, raising their hand and acknowledging we have to do better. Because yes, the NHL is infamous. When you look across that ice, you do not see a lot of people of color, and what they are still having to endure. Some of those players, my good friend, her nephew just got drafted, and he talked about that. Yeah, he spoke about that whole draft process, some of the assumptions that are made and some of the insinuations that are made for players of color, some of the things that he had to endure as a Black hockey player in college. So that struggle for them is very, very real compared to maybe you not hearing that struggle so much in maybe the NBA or the NFL, and to some degree, I'm going to use that term loosely, to some degree in MLB. So to see NHL acknowledge it and say, hey, we know we have to do better, and players like that stepping up and saying, I'm here to help you. NASCAR has quietly been doing it for a minute because they have programs like going to different schools, HBCUs among them, and saying, hey, do you want to be a part of our pit crew? right? So that's a space where
Yep.
they are trying to figure out how to bring diversity in different areas, because at the end of the day, you can't be a winning racer if you do not have a top-notch pit crew. And it's
Right.
the same thing in NHL. Whether it's your goalie or whether it's somebody on the line, doesn't matter. You have to have the cream of the crop there, but you also have to have those people in the front office. So want to see them talk a little bit more about their diversity initiatives in terms of GMs and coaches, because you have to have a seat at the table in terms of making it really stick. But great place for them to start the conversation. Great place for Matt Dumba to be the one to start that conversation.
Yeah, and I think that, you mentioned the MLB and that they've put some efforts behind, but sometimes we may question, like their initiatives and everything. But I think that the thing that is the biggest key, and Dumbo even mentioned this is himself, like growing up, he had guys that he idolized, right? That he watched that looked like him.
Yes.
And, for me here in Atlanta, growing up in Atlanta, I saw so many brothers out there playing baseball, like Fred McGriff, Deion Sanders, Otis Nixon, David Justice. Like, it was just so many of those guys. And now here we are with Michael Harris, sitting up here talking about, being the catalyst for the Braves potentially going to win back-to-back World Series. That stuff matters.
It does.
See guys that look like you, or women or men that look like you playing those particular sports. It just matters so much. And I think that that's what guys like Matt Dumba stepping up to say something. He's going to be in a documentary that's supposed to be released Friday called Black Ice. I know I'm going to go check that bad boy out.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't wait to go check it out, because I'm fascinated by hockey, period. Because, like you said, we had 2 failed hockey teams, so I didn't get a chance to kind of get going. But, hopefully another one comes around. But
I do apologize, Atlanta. Every time I come back, a hockey team leaves, so I'm so sorry.
Yes, Tenitra, don't do that. Stop doing that, please. Don't ever leave, so we won't have to worry about that happening again. Here we go.
Or if you leave, don't come back.
Right.
Hockey team. You go, hockey stays. The end.
You said that, not me. All right, one last thing before we get out of here really quick. We want to talk about the father-son relationship between Shareef O'Neal and Shaquille O'Neal. And I think that that's something that I like. It's kind of played out on television, because when he made a decision to go into the NBA, obviously dealt with a lot of injuries, and being at UCLA and then transferring to LSU and just having a heart issue, and almost to the point where he wasn't going to play basketball anymore. And then he decides to go into the NBA draft, goes undrafted, gets the opportunity in summer league with the Lakers. That didn't work out. But I think one of the things that really I thought was really cool when Shareef O'Neal was talking about how his relationship with his pops got better with Shaq, and I think and I just think about my relationship with my dad, about like a big event in our lives happening. And then after that event, it got better, because when my mom passed away, my relationship with my pops evolved. Like, it got evolved and it got better. And I'm just like, I'm able to have conversations and stuff like that. So it's just, when I was reading about Shareef and Shaq, it just made me just, go back to my personal, experiences. And it was like, yeah, that's how it's supposed to go.
Yes.
That's
exactly how it is supposed to go. You're supposed to use those obstacles and those disagreements and seeing things from a different vantage point. You use them to come together. And you got to give Shaq a world of credit, because oftentimes in these situations, it's the older generation that kind of refuses to move away and get off the schneid. I think it should be this way. Exactly. And you should not have come out and, a college at that point, and maybe even low key some fear. Because if your child had a heart issue that could have threatened his life, you weren't just talking to him as a former basketball player saying, hey, I don't think you're ready yet. You're also thinking like a father and concerned about his overall health. So I totally get it for Shaq, but shout out to him for being able to be open to listen to what Shareef had to say, and for them to be able to bridge that gap. And it honestly makes me want to watch Shareef a little bit more and kind of root for him and cheer him on. I've always cheered on Shaq because low-key met him a couple times, and that's a really good dude. So I'm not surprised by it, just proud of that guy to see him bridge that gap. And hopefully it's a message to fathers and sons out there about how you can find some common ground even when you agree to disagree on a certain topic. So hopefully speaking of agreeing, because Jarvis and I don't really disagree on what we want to talk about Monday, we're hoping it is a Falcons win. That's what we want to talk about. And of course, we'll talk a little bit more about Braves as they inch that much closer to the NLDS. Of course, UGA has a big rivalry game this weekend against Auburn. So we hope to debrief on a win. And Jarvis, might Georgia Tech get back-to-back wins for the first time since 2018? We shall see if they can pull it off against Duke this weekend. We'll talk about all of that and anything else going on in the sports world here in Atlanta on Monday. But listen, you don't have to wait till Monday to check out Locked On Sports Atlanta. You can go to Amazon Fire, you can go to Roku, and you can check out every member of this wonderful, wonderful network here in Atlanta and check out all of what we have to offer you. But hey, if you want to kick it on YouTube, you can still do that with 4,400 other subscribers because we got the content you have been waiting for. So listen, if you're looking in the background, you'll see it is an absolutely beautiful day. Go enjoy your weekend. I know Jarvis and I will see you Monday.
I'll come back now, you.